They got different things over here.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with a call to order. David Roth, Jim Roth.
Sherry Joe.
Joe Thompson.
Chris Connor, legal counsel.
So the first thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the September 25th.
Well, I think we should just, oh, wait, never mind, we just did a roll call, I'm sorry.
Does everyone has had a chance to look at the minutes and
Yes, I move we approve the minutes for September 25th.
somebody want a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes approved. And we'll move on to a discussion on the report. So we've spent the last time we met was obviously September 25th. We spent the last month kind of just focusing on getting all of our notes together and documents uploaded to a portal. That way we can all access everything.
And I still ain't figured that out. I'm sorry.
I can help you.
I'll get to you, but like I said last week, it's a bit horrible.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, I'll have to send you a note and stuff.
Worst case, I could put it on the flash drive and we can do it that way.
Okay.
You mean you can't access the,
I can't even find it.
it probably, did you, okay, yeah, just, probably isn't
That's
in
what I'm
your,
thinking.
it's probably just in your junk, yeah.
No, I looked everywhere. I can't even find, I thought, what I did was I always also kind of hit delete. And I can't
Well,
find it.
I think for purposes of the
Yeah.
minutes, I can explain what we did. So,
Okay.
all of the documents that the committee has gathered were downloaded to us. We then uploaded them, we put numbers on them for easy access. And then links to that database with those documents were sent to all the committee members. It's the anticipation that this documents, this cache of documents, which I think numbers into the thousands, is a public record. It will be released when the report comes out. If anybody wants to ask for it as part of the public record, they're certainly welcome to do that as well. And if there's any more documents that come out as a result of ongoing investigation, they will simply be added to those records. So what I'm envisioning as the committee will do is when the draft or when the report is finalized and it's released, I'm assuming that there will be a link to the report put on the city's website along with the ability to access all of the documents as part of all of that. So it will all be made available. Subject to the IT person for the city telling us how it needs to be done.
And that way as well, we're all talking about the same document, referencing the same document in the report. It's a very,
Okay.
sets us up for success.
Yeah, as we go forward and if we interview anyone, as we sit down, then we have that document attached so we can refer and can hand over to them and review at the same time. Just makes our questions a lot more focus driven and their responses directed towards the documents that we have in hand.
And I think it'll be easier too, is because when you write the report, you'll be able to see document number with a page that will be cited, so you can immediately then go to the public records and then see which documents are being talked to, rather than have to pull them out individually.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, yeah, I think we all agree that it's an extremely useful tool and will help us along our progress.
Yeah, I think it's important to know we haven't met in a month, but there's been a lot, and I mean a lot, of work product going on behind the scenes to set us up for the next phase of this. And you just got to, every once in a while when you're climbing the hill, you got to take a break, you got to get restructured and set up for the next phase to be successful. So that's kind of where we're at. Now that we have this portal, we have, by the way, it was 3 files that were downloaded in the portal. Each file, the first one had 500, there's 3 folders, 500 files, 400 files, 200 files, over 1,100 files came through the portal. And some of those files are multiple documents, like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So I can't even tell you how many pages are there, but I can tell you 1,100 files. And it correlates everything that we have in a structured format, and like Jessica, Jerica, and Chris said, we got the numbers associated with all the documents, so we're set up now to move forward.
And I think that's like Chris was saying, when I looked, I think it was around maybe 7,500 pages worth of information and pictures and video and just all kinds of different types of files. So just to give you an idea of how much information we're talking about. And I think when we talk about next steps moving forward, we have a draft outline and we're using that to build this report. And then once we have this report written, we'll be able to see where we need to address or get more information. But 7,500 pages approximately that's a lot of information.
That just got downloaded to us, we just saw it Friday, the 25th. Yeah, so it's fresh, it just came through. So we're still trying to put all that together.
And in the interim of the portal, we've been doing our own sections or subgroups. Yeah.
Yeah, our own research and meeting as individual, 2 teams of 2 to put together, start to structure a lot of this report. So there's been a lot going on over the last 4 weeks.
But I think that's our plan moving forward, pairs of us are gonna work on sections of the report and we'll come together, discuss, and we'll do that until we get it done.
Yeah, and it's important that we come together and we produce things at the end when it's full and complete. This is very much work product right now, and it's very raw, and it's stuff that we just need to keep internal and keep working on and develop it out to its fullest. And when it's finished, then everything will be full and whole. But I don't think there's any reason to start putting things out that are piecemeal or incomplete work product. It's just more confusing and open innuendo. So I just think we keep working as we have been and working behind the scenes to get this report drafted in its final phase.
One thing I was gonna ask you, Jim, did you asked Kevin for some documents?
Yeah, I got a few things, but,
Are you waiting on?
yeah. He said he has some more things that he was putting together, compiling of the history.
Did he give any kind of?
No, I'll say him tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll say him.
So, if we look at the next item on the agenda, our next commission meeting, city commission meeting update that's coming up, I think, is it the 3rd, Tom?
No, there is no commission meeting on the 3rd because of the election. The next commission meeting is on the 7th, I think.
Okay.
12.
Give me about 30 seconds, I will figure it out for you.
Well, our last update that we did to the city, we submitted a document in writing, just kind of detailing our efforts over the last month. If the city commission is okay with that, and if everyone's on board with that, I would say just do that again.
The next meeting is on the 12th.
The 12.
Yeah, it would have been on the 5th, but we decided to cancel that.
Will you draft that, David, as chair?
Yeah. Tom, would that be okay with you? I mean, I know.
A written
we don't-
statement. I would say that there was no one that was opposed to the last written statement, and we have not directed you otherwise, compelling you to show up in person, so I would say that the previous decision stands.
Okay. Okay, so we'll do a written report for November 12th. I don't know if there's any other topics that we want to talk about. I know it's kind of
Yeah, short and sweet.
So I'm clear, you will be giving a update to city council, city commission
in
on
writing.
the 12th, in writing, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't have any other items to discuss. I think the biggest thing for me tonight was to be able to get out in front of the public. And if there's any questions, they can ask questions. If they have any documents they want to share, now's the time to share. I don't know if anyone else has anything to share.
No, I think, I feel like satisfied with what's on the agenda. So, open it up.
Yeah, so with that, open it up for public comment.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I remember when we were considering hiring a lawyer, one of the reasons was because the committee needed advice on how to write a report or even talk about it without being accused of libel. Has that been figured out? Did you get advice on that?
Well, the advice that I would give is currently hypothetical. What I would say is, this is what would ordinarily happen. Whatever's in the report, one would assume that it's based upon the information that was gathered, and truth is a defense to defamation. I would be confident that whatever's written will be based upon what's in the public record. If something's not in the public record and it falls under the heading of opinion, that also has a degree of protection as well. And then there's other reasons why there could be protection because of there's this as a limited public forum situation that has some latitude on what can or can't be said. So I was unaware of that part of the discussion, but I'm not really worried about it.
Does that satisfy the rest of the committee that was worried about it, Joe in particular?
Oh, yeah, satisfies me. It's a weight off my shoulders knowing that we have Chris, who's a legal teammate, who can guide us and tell us that this is inappropriate, it should not be in, and this is appropriate, and this can stay. But, yes, I appreciate the question. I'm satisfied that Chris will help us with that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think since we got Mr. Carter hired to help us, I think concerns about us maybe saying things we shouldn't or whatnot, I think those concerns, at least for me, are alleviated.
Well, and there's more people here, so I do want to say this as well. So everybody understands that the city has retained me, but I am the lawyer for this committee, not for the city of Piqua. And so this is an independent committee, and my duties and obligations are to the independent committee, not to any elected official or any city employees. So that's part of this independent role that I play.
Anything else?
Has anybody from the city been interviewed yet?
At this time,
Still no interview.
We have not requested interviews, as we're still forming evidence of what gaps might even exist to want to ask or interview people. So we have not asked since we've done the city manager, and we've not continued forward as we're in the building and report phase.
And then we've been in touch with Scott Smith. And Scott Smith, I think, has reached out to some of you folks, the rock star Dave Rock. But the lab is backed up. So preliminary results, I'm gonna let Scott announce those. And we were hoping that maybe Scott could come and give a presentation. He's very busy though with Conyers East Palestine, and now he's in Washington, so we should be hearing something from Scott Smith soon, so maybe that would help with the report. But I do believe that you had his contact information if you got a hold of him.
I have not, I just sent him a friend request on Facebook, so we just connected on Facebook, but
And I think Mr. Holman has his contact information also, so.
Yeah, mine.
We're all usually like 4 weeks to get the results, but it's been a little bit longer, so we're all anxious to see what. And I know he paid the testing out of his pocket, and the city had paid to have somebody else come and pay. And I was maybe requesting that we could possibly pay for Scott Smith's lab, or possibly, just something to bring to you guys' attention. He did pay for this out of his pocket. So, I'm sure he'll get in touch with him. Yeah, maybe you guys could discuss with the city commission on, Scott sending an invoice from the lab and maybe getting his lab work paid for.
I do want to address the issue of interviews. So a body like this has no power to compel anybody to be interviewed. We can make requests. The other thing too is as it relates to city employees, depending on what may or may not happen as a result of the investigation, there may be some rights and some warnings that have to be given depending on what happens. I think that's unlikely, but we've got to be mindful of that process as well too. So to be clear, no interviews have been done. The committee has not determined whether or not interviews need to be done. If they are done, if people need to be interviewed in the estimation of the committee, there will be requests made to talk to those folks in some way. And keep in mind, an interview doesn't necessarily mean face-to-face questions. It can be done through submitting written questions too and getting written responses. So there's a number of ways that it could happen that will be dealt with once the committee identifies who to talk to and what their status is. Were they a city employee? Were they part of an outside testing group that was brought in? So we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah, I would think, we haven't, like everyone has said, we haven't gotten interviews yet. I think the biggest thing for us right now is all the documents that we have. Which, like I said, is thousands of pages, and that's a lot to process. And
I'm sorry, I don't need to.
Thousands of pages.
thousands of pages of documents that we've collected from the city, from the public, and compiling all that into one report. That's our main focus right now, using interviews to fill in the gaps of the report.
Those documents are not new, that we have those from us.
Correct, but using them to draft the report.
When you said the plan was to work in pairs, has that actually occurred?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All four of you?
Two of us,
Pairs,
two and
two.
two. Different
Dividing
sections.
up the work. One of the other things that's a valuable piece of getting the documents uploaded and then numbered and everything else, and then downloaded to the committee is that the link that we have as a searcher, this makes the document searchable. So that leads to other efficiencies because you don't necessarily have to go through each document one by one. And then there's an ability for people who you don't have to have a high degree of tech savvy to do this, but you can then pull out documents, put them in a place where you're gonna go back and look at those or reference them. And with the number of documents you have, a lot of them just don't really have a lot of relevance. Certainly, I saw a number of pictures there, some are important, so.
I think I've read every one of those documents several times. So it's disappointing that a whole month has gone by and all we've done really is upload documents.
Well,
That's not
think so.
necessarily.
No, I mean, you gotta think like we're drafting this report in sections and we have to fill each of those sections in with the documents that we have. So we kind of have build this report and then,
months.
well, we had a slow start. I mean, at this point, it finally feels like the ball is rolling as far as getting things put on paper. So one of the reasons why we wanted to have this meeting tonight, at least for me, was I don't know if there's anything else that the public has as far as input or information that they could provide to help us, or you think that everything that we've gotten from the community is enough? I guess that's.
I'm happy to address that. So I guess with me, I feel like I was really excited about this committee. I feel like we've got someone that's very unkind to people in the community, and that's fine. Can't have 5 out of 5, okay? I feel like we were very forthcoming with information to a point, because I feel like, and I would love for you to help me understand more your role. Because you say you don't.
Are you looking at me?
Yes, sir. The attorney. Okay. So, yes, so, what is it, Connor?
Connor, yes.
Okay.
C-O-N-A-R-D.
Okay, Connor, okay. So yes, I'm just wondering, I'm glad that you're saying that you were independent. What are your goals as far as like this committee? What do you see your position as? Because I think for me, I've got all kinds of documents. I don't know that I want to share it with you. This is the first time I've ever met you. This is a very sensitive issue, especially for me and these folks here. We've all, I don't know how many reports we've got amongst us, but are you representing another, I guess, something you said stands out to me. You said something like what to remove, right? From the report. Do you recall what you were saying, something like that? About what to include and what not to, what to take out. So is there a reason? How do you evaluate a document or how do you know if it's valuable or not? Like, are you, okay.
You said some of it wasn't relevant.
What's that?
You said some of it was not relevant.
Well, I'm just saying, in the context of 7,000 documents,
We feel like
some of it that might,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I've had cases with hundreds of thousands. Not every document is going to be cited in a report by this committee. And when they put weight on documents, which are evidence in the context of what they're doing, some things have more weight than others, okay? Relevancy is part of it. And you have to go through and you have to say, okay, do I need 10 pictures of the same thing? I mean, that would be a relevant question. So when you're talking about, when you're talking to a lawyer about these things, lawyers look at this in the context of what's evidence, what's not. And this committee is going through to determine how certain things occurred. So some documents aren't going to be relevant to that determination. I don't know what those documents are. I'm not writing the report. I'm here to assist them with legal questions they might have. It's possible that I may help them edit the document, may help them structure the document, will certainly help them compile the documents that they're referring to that might be the source material. I mean, in some ways, I was thinking about this driving here today, this is a lot like writing a term paper for high school or college. You got to footnote where your sources are, where you're getting the information, because you have to make that document easily accessible to the public. You can't just write a document and say, there was a contract that was entered into, and just leave it at that. There's a contract floating out there. So if somebody wants to go and see what the contract says, they know that it's going to be on page number 110 through 115. So that simply takes some
I don't know
time.
that that's really what I was getting at. What I do think I'll make a suggestion that would make me feel a little
Sure.
more at ease would be if you find something, maybe a duplicate of a photo, and you feel it's not really important, maybe have another folder. These are the items that were not included in the report, but were submitted by citizens.
Well, I would say, like Mr. Connor pointed out earlier, every document that we've got, which I think over 7,000 pages,
You can get a link for it.
it's all public record. I think all of these documents will be available.
And by definition, would have been reviewed, you've already indicated they have. But I want to address something that's more important about what you said. And that is, this committee, and I've been here twice, has talked more than once about the fact that there may be other information that is in the possession of other people that may or may, I assume they're not public records, otherwise they would already be part of that 7,000. So if people have information and they don't produce it, and they think that it's relevant, how can the committee do its job if you're withholding that information? And so it's not clear to me why anybody would want to withhold information if the search is to get the truth, not my truth or somebody individual's truth,
I feel like
but
the
the
committee's
truth.
having a hard time bridging that gap of trust back now with the committee. And so that's, why this meeting was so important. One, it's a good step to see that you guys are actually all still here, it's all still, Joe's saying there's a lot going on behind the scenes, so, I think for us, there is a ton of, I can't imagine, I don't know what your $7,500 documents or whatever is, but, I think that, maybe if there was a little more, I don't know, communication with the committee and like the community, maybe you would have a better response.
Well, all I can say is that if people have information that they think is relevant to getting to the truth and having this report accurately reflect a review of all the evidence has to be provided to them. And the evidence that apparently is part of the public record has been produced.
Okay.
And if
So you
people,
feel you have an adequate amount of time?
I wasn't part of that process because I came in late, but with 7,000 documents, with the fact that I believe the city has been transparent, I believe you've gone down to the city to go and find documents as well to request. And so, again, if private citizens have documents that are not that are not public record documents, there is no other way for this committee to get them other than that private citizen to give that information to the committee. Because there's simply no other way.
So there's no, you're not seeking for documents yourself, or you're just going off what you have?
We have no power to subpoena any records. All we can do is get records that are in the public domain, meaning that they are city public records that under Ohio Sunshine Law and Public Records Law, they are required to keep.
So that you.
But if a private citizen has documents that do not fall under the heading of the definition of a public record, there's no way this committee, one, would be able to get something they don't know about because it's not a public record, and two, they wouldn't know about it because some private citizens got it.
A lot of the documents that we've all gathered though, we've done research through the EPA and Bowling Green and all the different, that's how we acquired them. So did you guys acquire any of your own documents or only what you've been given? Have you done
Once you
any
answer
actual
that
research?
question, I have a question to
Have you guys
ask.
done any actual research with the companies that was involved or?
I have personally reached out to the city for some documents, and I have no issue getting the documents.
But other than the city,
Other
have you
than the
guys
city, right.
reached out to?
I've only reached out to the city at this point, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone else has.
I mean, I've done my own research and acquired those documents.
Yeah.
Again, though, my own doing.
I asked you a month ago, and all of you put in writing that you had done no document requests. I have it in writing from all four of you.
Specifically FOIA requests, no.
Correct, and the reason why is because we were waiting, the committee agreed that we were waiting until we hired an attorney to help us with that process.
I had done quite a few document requests prior to that.
As far as the city being.
And you were on the committee, that means then the committee did document requests.
I, as one member of the committee, did document requests.
But again, as a committee, individuals act on behalf of the committee. I presume you were doing that, acting on behalf of the committee, because those documents were then shared.
But as of now, I am not a member, and the present company here, as of a month ago, told me in writing they had done no document requests.
That was a month ago.
Since April. That was a month ago.
What do you know?
Meeting since
So
April.
you know we haven't done any requests over the last month?
We're asking outside of the city, have we done any kind
You can write to a private company, but they don't have to answer you.
But did you?
Let me, since I'm new here,
Yeah.
and by the way, there aren't any rules by which this committee operates, and I think that that's a dumb one because it's an ad hoc committee. But you often see, we've got a city commissioner member here, there's often rules that are written on how.
There are a ton of those.
Right, so this is intended to be kind of a free flow, because it's an ad hoc committee, and I just think everybody needs to be respectful of one another. But, and that's not to imply that there's been any disrespect, but, the issue of, I've kind of lost my train of thought. I'll get back to it.
Document requests we were talking about.
Well, the city has made the public records available. Private records are, I know what it was. I'm hearing different things about what the scope of what this committee's to do, okay? EPA records, for example, were there permits taken, were there other things? Those might be relevant to what this committee does. But ultimately, if there was contamination that has an impact on people who live near or around, or there's airborne contamination, those concerns, that's not what this committee's here to do. They do not have the scientific expertise to do that, okay? And so what my understanding is of the role of this committee was to determine how the city of Piqua could build a facility that was intended to train and firefighters, that it became a testing facility that would allow this degree of toxic material to be tested without public knowledge. That's my understanding, just generally
Why did the
speaking.
resolution include the city's liaison being willing to help with experts for the committee? Who were those experts then?
Well, I think that there's multi-prongs to this. I think that, one, as I understand it, this Mr. Smith is got some expertise and is in East Palestine. There's some independent testing. My understanding, again, loosely, I could be wrong about this because I have not dug into this side of it yet, because I don't view that as why I was hired. But my understanding is that the testing piece and whether or not this contamination has any long-term effect or threat or poses any risks is being done independently. Again, what is this committee charged with? And I think that this committee has defined its role as to understand how do we get to this place? Because none of these folks are experts. And that the city, citizens of Piqua wanted to understand, how could this have happened?
There were 7 questions, but the committee is not limited to those 7 questions. And I will readily admit that the commissioners did not include any concern about the health and safety of the community.
And it's hard for me to imagine that given the fact that you're here, given the fact that there's a committee, that this report will end that discussion. Because that discussion is an ongoing discussion. But again, there's nobody here, of the 5 people sitting in this room, with me as a consultant to the committee, that has the technical expertise to
That's why the
understand.
resolution included experts.
And what I'm suggesting to you is that this is a process. The process begins with the preparation and the drafting of the report to understand how we got to this place. I sense that you're assuming it won't get there, and to the science part of it and what it means. I haven't heard anything that says that wouldn't happen to that.
That seems to be your goal.
No, it's
that it
not.
doesn't
No,
go
what
there.
I'm saying is, in the process, it wouldn't surprise me if it got there. But that's not where we are in this process.
How long do you see this process taking?
That's beyond, you have a group of private
Like, do
citizens.
you foresee it like ending before the first of the year?
I can't speak to that because I'm not
And you
drafting the
shouldn't
reports.
speak to
But what I
that,
will
really.
say is, you have a group of citizen volunteers who all work, who are doing this out of a sense of community and civic responsibility. And I commend them for doing that. In the same way, I would commend you as citizens who are interested in what's happening in your community. But I would sacrifice speed for accuracy and time. And I would, and all I would say is, in my experience, the people who sign up for this type of work are very conscientious about what they're doing. And I would simply ask that you be patient. I don't know what the timeline is.
Actually, the question should go to the committee rather than you.
Looked, appeared to be phrased to me, so I answered the way I thought.
As far as transparency, originally, the city denied that there was any battery burning going on out there. And then, I had, documentation that they were investigated, and they said that, there was no battery burning going on. And they also produced documentation that said, the city of Pickwa's letterhead that said, we weren't burning any batteries out there. So as far as transparency and trust in the city, I'm pretty sure that right there goes to show you that they're not being truthful. The only way that this came to light was people brought it to the city's attention. The mayor said, well, we didn't know this was going on out there. So transparency is, I don't believe transparency is 0% on this whole situation.
Well, but you're also saying that in the context of what the city said. These folks aren't the city. That's the reason why they were
No, but can you
appointed.
tell me, once the report is finished and it is submitted, what's the next step? So let's say you guys find fault. Well, let's just say you find no fault. What happens after that there, Mr. Holman? What do you do then if they find fault?
I have a question,
So,
so,
hold on.
I'm not sure.
Well,
It's not my meeting.
yeah, I'll answer that, because sometimes it's not fair to ask that to one person, he's just one person.
Well, he's one of
But
our
what,
commissioners.
I know, what I can tell you is, in my experience, when these things have happened before, is that there's a blend of things, okay?
Let's not
You've got
Lawyers talking.
what does the elected body want to do as a group that takes a majority vote? It's hard for me to imagine that the citizens who speak their voices will be ignored. And then, look, I'm just telling you,
You don't need to tell us, we've lived it.
I know, and you know, we've got an election next week. I mean, that's how voters, reflect their happiness with elected officials.
The elected body in Pickwood is involved in this.
And it's sitting right here, and you guys are listening, but it's.
I'm simply trying to answer the question of what happens next in these
Question
things.
was.
Right,
So-
yeah, we already know what happens after the report's finished.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if it's not gonna mean anything, I'm
And
not sure why.
between city commission and the citizens who are interested in that, and whatever recommendations, if there are any recommendations that are made by the committee, those will be part of the public discussion. I think that when this report gets submitted, there's going to be ongoing public discussion, whatever form that takes.
alright, I have a question. So as an attorney, right, I'm not an attorney, so not my expertise. I'm not a toxicologist or environmental expert. Just wondering if in these documents you see something that is illegal or wrongdoing, are you in any way compelled or did you take an oath or any sort of, like, are you compelled to have to report certain things that come along your way or no? Because you're,
I would assume that whatever information that gets to that place would be included in the report. That's the very reason for the report. And this body doesn't have any power to commence a grand jury or to initiate a prosecution. All it can do is say, this is what we've discovered, here's what's there, and then the people with the power are gonna have to make a decision on what happens next, along with whatever the community wants. I mean, I understand your concerns, but fundamentally, there's a process in place here. And, not getting into specific details, I mean, this is going on all over the country in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different places. The process has to play out. And if you don't have trust in the process, and I understand why people get skeptical because we don't have a lot of faith in government, broad levels, local, state, federal, I understand that. But there were plenty of opportunities to address that. And you clearly have elected officials who have taken the first step to say, we recognize there's community and citizen concern, and we are appointing a committee to address that. And I simply would ask, let the process play out.
Frank said that there was power for the committee. Why did you earlier say there wasn't?
Pardon me?
Frank Patrizio said the committee did have subpoena power. So why are you saying we didn't?
Well, the committee is a standalone body, has no subpoena power, and even if it did put out a subpoena, there's no means to enforce the subpoena.
There's still pros and cons from going ahead and using subpoena power. It will make people think twice. Their reactions can say volumes. But you and Frank both want to say, no, you've got the power, but don't use it.
I view it a little differently than Frank. This body, as a group of citizens, does not have subpoena power. It is not a governmental
Would have to
authority
go
that has
through
that power.
Frank.
What's that?
But it would have to go through Frank. But Frank said, does anybody deny hearing Frank say this?
I haven't heard.
At our very first meeting,
But I haven't heard Frank say that.
he doesn't want us to use it.
But there's no need to enforce it.
You can't.
You could still issue it,
But
doesn't matter.
I would say this. If the necessity to truly interview somebody is there, let's figure it out at that moment in time and see if there's a way to do it. Again, I don't want to jump to the speculative place of saying what can or can't be done. This is my second meeting here. There has been progress that's been made. I'm generally aware of what's going on. I am not micromanaging the committee. They're writing their report. I'm going to help them with that process. That's what we're doing. There's going to be a report made in 2 weeks to the city commissioners. I'm sure there's a public comment session. I'm sure that people have an opportunity to comment then. I'm sure they will. But right now, virtually every answer you might get from a committee member or from me has a degree of speculation to it and an uncertainty because of where we are in the process. And there'll be plenty of time to not trust the process once it's done. You don't like it, to be layer your grievances at that time. But again, this committee's trying their best. Give them some time because they want to get it right. And I'm sure that you will.
for me, it's not a trust in the process. For me, it's I'm looking at you for questions and I can answer them right now. So I don't understand why 7,500 documents in and there's like an upload open. You know, like you said, how does it start from building this building to do fire training? They just built the building 2 weeks before they were vacated. We've been burning for 8 years. It wasn't even there.
If I wasn't, I hear what you're saying, and I really don't want to be, I'm not intending to be let me come off this way. I'm not from here. If I were to read this report, and I was not from Piqua and didn't have the background, how would I ever know? This document has a broader base than just Piqua residents who've been here forever and may know all the facts and circumstances.
They've been here and they've been on the committee for months, and we as the public have really we pray for this committee. We pray for the success of this committee. I know I do. And I also pray for a reason to want to trust the committee. Okay, I would like that, but I feel like the wall is coming right back up.
When work product, as we heard, work product is ongoing. Work product is by definition, it's not public. Because I'm sitting at a desk, I'm doing what I'm doing, in this case, in their private time. When the work becomes public, then you'll have an opportunity to make a decision on what you trust or don't trust. And that will happen in due course. What I would say is, if people have documents that they believe are relevant to this process, and they don't produce it, those individuals will always be able to come back and say, well, I don't trust the process because they didn't have all the information. Well, if they don't give the information to the committee, that would lead to something that may not be accurate. So I would encourage citizens who have information, or people who have information, to turn it over to the committee.
I want to thank the committee because I think you guys have seen your time. But the whole problem I have with it is Frank can't investigate himself, and that's what we've been allowed to do. The city can't investigate themselves. The only way that you don't get to the bottom of this is to have a special prosecutor hired, and people will have to be subpoenaed, and they're going to have to come under oath. You guys are doing a great job, but if you don't have subpoena power, it'd be like you're the judge and you got pulled over and you're gonna represent yourself and you're also going to sentence yourself. That's what we have right here.
A special prosecutor implies that there's a criminal investigation. This
be a criminal
isn't a criminal investigation. Now, they're based upon the report, some people may think that there should be a criminal investigation. And again, that could happen. I don't know, but it's not by this committee.
But how can the committee, you guys report to the commissioners, the commissioners can't investigate themselves either. It's all in the same boat.
That's why I kind of asked you if you see something that stands out and it's illegal, just flat out illegal, are you in a position or are you in a position to protect your client?
What I would say is, in a hypothetical that you've just given,
Okay.
I think that any committee like this one, any committee that found something that was clearly illegal or raised suspicions of legality, they would draw that into question for public comment. You know, again, it's a process. The questions that I'm hearing imply, or at least suggest, that there's a high degree of concern that criminal activity occurred.
I think that's accurate.
Okay. Criminal activity for a criminal investigation requires probable cause. Probable cause means that there's reason to believe that a crime may have occurred and that someone may have committed that crime. Okay? The process then, if there's a determination that probable cause may exist, not that it does,
Who determines that?
that is typically done by some form of law enforcement. Okay, I mean, standard case, you go to the police do an investigation, they present the information to the county prosecutor or the municipal prosecutor. But it doesn't always have to happen that way.
Okay.
But I think that we're getting in discussions that are so far removed from where we are today. But I'm answering them because I know that there's been concern, because that's the reason I'm here, and I'm trying to answer them as best as I can.
And I will share a little bit, okay? I've got, I don't know how many people that want me to ask certain questions that are also concerned from the community. I have people that are worried that they're cancers. came from this, and they're worried about, you know, exposure dates and, you know, clock is running out on some people, so, you know, there's a lot of emotion involved.
There is, and there are legitimate, serious questions that have to be answered. But again, keep in mind, this isn't the committee that's gonna make a determination of whether or not there's a long-term or short-term health risk by exposure to what was going on at that facility. And if you don't feel that that's happening, that's being directed, the focus of that attention should not be on this committee. Because we don't have the expertise, they don't have the expertise.
Who has the expertise for that?
Why, there's science out there. I mean, there's scientists, there's people who would do lab testing. I mean, it's going on right now. You mentioned it, East Palestine and other places. Again, my job is to advise this committee. This committee is not going to weigh in on that component of it.
What is the long-term benefit for the citizens ongoing in this community for this report to be all-inclusive of information?
Well, I think that what you're gonna see is that when this report is drafted, there will be a kind of a mission statement behind it, what the scope of this report is intended to address and what perhaps it is not intended to address.
Right.
And then from that, the citizens can decide how they want to react and move forward. And again, you've got a city commissioner here. That suggests to me that you've got elected officials who are very interested in what's happening here. And all I can tell you is that with an elected official here, that usually means to me that they're interested in what's going on.
For good or for bad,
What's that?
for good or for bad.
Not
Well, I don't know
your
what's in
question on
your
that
report,
aspect.
and I will just make a statement for myself. If anyone would like to share any word product and see if I can identify any gaps or where I could contribute, I'm happy to do so. But I feel like if all you're doing is answering 5 questions, and if you don't reach out to me, I don't feel like,
I can assure you, we are going to reach out to you.
I feel that you probably have enough to answer 5 questions, so.
No, they don't, because there's no, the desire to collect evidence and get more information doesn't end because there's 7,000 documents. I mean, that's already been said, there could be an interest in interviewing people. They've asked before, are there any other citizen members who have information or documents? And so that's still ongoing.
But if there's no trust, you know what I mean?
I can't address the trust issue.
I'm just allowing you to know that there is an element there.
I've been doing things for a long time, and if people would decide they don't want to trust somebody, that's their decision to make. All I
Does
know
the
is that,
committee understand that?
I guess my comment would be, like, I know it seems like the committee's really quiet right now, and I think that's just because we are kind of just working at this point. And then putting, pencil to paper and actually writing, that's the focus, and it just takes time. Now, I will say that I know there's a sense of urgency as well, and, we can meet in a month. If we don't feel like we're making adequate progress, maybe we look at bringing on a 5th person to help carry some of that workload. I don't, that discussion would be had, but.
Are the paralegals helping with this yet?
yeah, well, the paralegal does all the work about uploading the information. I mean, it's kind of like this. You can take, just what's in the news reporting. Investigation is ongoing on somebody, and it takes months and months and months. You wonder, why is it taking so long? And all of a sudden something happens and there's a flurry of activity. I think that's what you're gonna see here, because that's normally what happens. Yeah, we have not discussed yet what will happen once a final draft is, being finalized. This committee, and I'm not asking the committee to make that decision now, because we're not there, because we don't know what we need to do. But typically, a final draft is submitted as a final document. But in this situation, maybe that's not appropriate. Maybe there's a draft that's submitted for, public comment. again, the process will play out based upon what they find and what they think they need to address the mission that they were asked to complete. And I don't close any doors for what that may or may not mean as their advisor.
I was co-chair of this committee up until about 5 weeks ago. I know what this committee is doing or not doing.
I'm sure you do.
I would like the
That,
committee.
but just to say, that's one person out of 5. I'm sure that other people here may or may not share that.
I did not miss one meeting. No one else can say that.
I would like the committee to also question, originally, when Scott Smith came to town, they agreed to let him on 9300 State Route 66 and do testing. And then when he arrived to do testing, they would not let him do it. So how can we get the true answers if they won't allow Scott Smith to actually test on 9300 State Route 66? I know he tested around the area, but WSP was in there and allowed to test. So we can't get results on that actual property. And so we really can't get answers unless something is tested out there. So,
And Jeff, is that the testing that we're waiting results for, is what he took around?
well, that was around the area, but not, they had agreed to let him in and do testing, just like WSP, which was at the facility. They
At
opened
ground
the
zero,
gate.
we want testing at
And
ground
we
zero.
don't want 4-foot drilling, we want scrape samples, we want Scott Smith to be able to come into that location. And maybe he should be able to go in the buildings, and he should be given free access to test on any place that he feels, or we're not gonna get the correct results. WSP is, here we go again, WSP was hired by the city. They're investigating themselves.
Have you asked the,
These results aren't good either.
Yeah, and WSP's results were not very good either. I'm not a scientist, but according to Scott Smith, that was not good. So, like I said, you can't investigate yourself. And that's what you guys have been forced into, investigating. You can't get the truth from somebody if they're not under oath. So, I still appreciate all the work that you guys are doing, but until you have somebody under oath being questioned, we're not gonna get to the truth of it. ESRG needs to come in, all these people that were out there in this process all need to be subpoenaed and put under oath. Whether, you know, if the city doesn't wanna do that, then that means they're complicit.
Well, what I would say is, again, there's a city commission meeting coming up, and I'm sure you've probably said those things before. But I would encourage you to continue, if that's something you want to talk to the city officials about that, who actually have the power to do something.
I've been here from day one, and I'm not giving up. So I've got my trust in Scott Smith. There's no reason for Scott not to give us true results, and his company that he's doing the test results is Eurofins, and they're.
Out of curiosity, did he give you some indication of when those test results might be available?
He has some of them back, and he's just waiting on the dioxins.
He told us 4 weeks, but we're not Scott Smith, we don't wanna speak for Scott Smith.
No, I'm just saying, your understanding is that sometime,
Yes,
probably before the end of November,
I would hope so.
that those results would be available, and then, would the committee expect to have those results made available to them as well?
Oh, definitely.
He wants to do
Yes,
some
he-
kind of town hall meeting so that he can come explain
Okay.
results and go over everything.
Well, I think that's great, I think that's,
It's great if we can get the commissioners to agree, but I can't seem to get anybody to answer me, so.
And why
Maybe we
isn't
would
the
suggest a
committee
town hall
asking these
meeting,
questions?
Like we had for the rental registration or something, when we can get those results back from Scott. I think that would be fantastic.
I think that's a good question. I think part of the thing to remember is, I know it seems like we want all the answers to everything now.
Right.
But you just gotta, you have to bear with us, we gotta do this bit by bit,
I know how long it takes.
so. I
He
promise
actually
you,
had a little bit of information available and was wanting to do a video call today. But then he's got another thing going on, so maybe by your next meeting, or maybe,
Like a video call.
maybe he could get with each one of you and discuss stuff too, he said, so.
I think a big part of his schedule right now is Conyers, and that's an absolute disaster at Conyers too, so. Once again, we don't wanna come across as, you guys volunteered, and we really appreciate what you're doing,
Yes, absolutely.
but your hands are tied. You have to admit it. Just keep doing it, and we'll get a report, and we'll go from there. But thank you guys so much for your time.
Like Chris said, I think I would rather sacrifice speed for accuracy and
The truth.
a good, accurate report.
And in the eyes of being transparent, I will say that I feel like we really finally got our ducks in a row this past month of like finding this, getting some advice, getting things set up. We're very organized now electronically. We've done the subgroup thing, and I just feel
Jim
like
hasn't even figured out how to upload his.
he doesn't
So
see
you
it.
want to back up on that.
We'll get that.
So,
It's not like it's not a competition like, Joe's working less than I am, so I need to work harder.
Now, she's talking about the ducks in a row. I know there's one duck that's not in the row.
He'll be there.
We'll get everybody on the same page, on the level playing field.
I could tell you whether he, is it Jim is sophisticated in technology or not, really. We deal with people who are supposedly very sophisticated in technology and can't figure out the portal sometimes.
I am not sophisticated, and I've worked with Jim since April.
So anything else? I'll second that.
Sure.
This, Any right there.